Universities. It's 87, Mary Hardin Baylor. I'm a pastor, moderator. I'll be sharing some other things in a few minutes, and I'll have a proper introduction. I'm just glad to be here. Thank you for allowing me to come.
Yeah, you can clap.
My name is Janae Ratcliffe. I attend Ransom Middle School. I'm in the 6th grade. I'm an A honor roll student, and I am the published author of 6 books, 2 which is in Spanish. I am a motivational speaker and a young influencer, and yeah.
Wow, this young lady is a hard act to follow. My name is Willie Earl Johnson. I'm originally from Mississippi, so I got a story for y'all. My grandson inherited legacy group. I just love him, Isaiah. So I'm sitting in for Mr. Opportunity who's under the weather. So I'm going to try to fill in the boots. But we got the big shoes to fill.
Hello everybody, my name is Mr. Tristan Turgeon. I'm a part of the Heritage Legacy Curators. I'm on the wrestling team at Temple High School. I'm a senior this year. What I want to do after high school, I want to be in law, I want to be an attorney. I'm going to go to MCC and then transfer to Baylor. And yeah, that's just a little bit about me. Thank you.
Hi guys, my name is Terrace Goodwin and I am a nurse, a mom, I'm a Temple resident. I recently ran for public office for Bell County Commissioner Precinct 3. But ultimately, I'm just somebody who cares about our community that we live in and ensuring that we make things as equitable as possible. So I serve on multiple boards. I founded Wake Up Temple, an organization that promotes civic engagement and social awareness to achieve equity. And I am really grateful that you guys have put on this amazing program and have us here to share.
Give them all a round of applause. We do have Dr. Crossley who will be joining us momentarily, but just to make sure that we keep on time, we will start with this conversation. So I'm curious to know, have you watched this documentary before, and what were your initial impressions about what you saw today? And we can start anywhere. Just
My brother Roscoe was in that crowd, Roscoe Harrison Jr. I think he was arrested. And his team, he worked for Johnson's group then that puts out Ebony Magazine and Jet Magazine. They sent him down though, so he was in the middle of that crowd somewhere. And only Dr. Crossley. Anyway, his team received, I would stand for you, my legs acted up. They received a Nobel Prize for this documentation. And so I heard direct stories, made friends with others that were part of his group. I lived that part to see that it's very scary as a child to see dogs unleashed in the water, use of water. I still have that. When I see the water being shot out, I still think about that moment.
Dr. Harrison, before you pass the mic, what was it like living through that?
In Belton, it was a normality. It was normal because we were segregated. I just knew I could not go in certain restaurants or certain this, and it was just part of normal life. The Beltonian, we were kicked out several times, but we had to sit in the top stairs, and all the other kids had to sit downstairs, and somebody would chunk ice on them or something. They'd blame us all and kick us all out, and it seemed normal. But yet it wasn't. I was almost shot at one point while at full scholarship to Mary Hardin Baylor, and a young trooper had been killed by 2 black men after a traffic stop. And they shot him, they ran over with their car, and I looked like one of those people. And they stopped me. It's a hot July day and slammed my head down on the hood, burnt the side of my face, and said, "Ian, if you move, we'll blow your head off." And I said, "I'm reaching for my wallet to get my ID." He said, "We'll get it." And one of the young men that was in the group I went to school with And I said, you know who I am. And he finally spoke up and said, that's George here. That's Roscoe's brother, Roscoe Harrison, his son. Works at Cochran Bland Potts, worked for my daddy. My daddy worked there 50 years. And so it was a very scary experience. It was, I didn't know what to fear most, the threat of nuclear war under Kennedy's presidency or the day-to-day life. And so it was part of life. Didn't know what to do when we integrated. And that's another whole story. I jumped on several, but it was part of normalcy to the, when my father died, it really became rough, but it was unusual to be in a place like this. That's why I'm so grateful. I just framed the social structure at that time, but I lived that era. I'm
Thank
sure
you,
several
sir.
others.
Thank you. Dr. Crossley, we just briefly introduced ourselves and then just giving your reaction to the documentary.
Okay, I'm Dr. Sanjanet Crossley. I'm from Temple, Texas. I've been there all my life. I'm 75 years old.
Woo!
And I was born in Temple. And the documentary, I think I was in the 7th grade when that occurred, so I remember all the traumatic events of that time. And I would venture to say broadly, Black people had a similar experience, but then we had different experiences depending on where we lived and what we were exposed to. And it all created a story for us. My mindset has always been, I've never been a victim, I've always been victorious. And I've never regretted being Black, because it's my assignment. Because I was brought up in a very strong religious family, and so the Bible outweighed everything that I was living in this container. My content is lethal, so you can get past what I look like. So that is how it pictured how my life was framed and still framed. I make no apologies for my Black self. I make no apologies for being Black, and I never regretted being Black. And yes, I grew up when they were calling you the N-word, when it got to be slang for children, but it was never a positive thing. And so I'm a community activist. I do things in the community. I'm over a nonprofit. I've done things to be the first one of my color and gender on boards and what have you, because I said I'm never going to be the victim. I'm always going to be the one that changes the environment. My theme was changing one life at a time. And so I believe that I'm victorious in that. My relationship with God, knowing that I'm wonderfully and fearfully made, you can't make me feel less. There's nothing you can say to me to make me feel less. Because I love myself, if nobody else does. I love myself. With my old self, my imperfect self, I love myself. So that's what's colored my world. And that's what I try to infect other people with, and especially our younger generation. When I graduated from the all-Black high school. So I've been Black all my life. I have a Black card, I really do. So, and I was a Val in my class in '68. And then I went to Mary Hardin Bell and had my first experience with integration, real experience with integration at UMHB. It was 5 of us that went that were of color. It was '68 when I went.
5.
And 5. African Americans and 2 that were from Africa, who they assimilated more as white. They were considered white, but we were the niggas, okay? When I went to Mary Hardin Bell, so they didn't want to associate with us because then they would be with us, and so we stood out. But when I went and I lived on campus and what have you, but I went there for education because I had a scholarship to go there, and then later I transferred to TWU where it was more minorities. But that's where I got my first and only 2 C's in my life. Is in Mary Hardin Bell, because it stands for color, no doubt, when I got it in general math and in English, because my sisters got it at TWU, because they said you could never make anything above a C. My sister got a C plus, and that was the only thing she got in microbiology. She thought, they said, but we don't give Black kids A's, okay? We call ourselves Black, but they would call me different things then. But nevertheless, she ended up over the microbiology lab at the VA. I wanted her to come today, but she wasn't feeling well. And she's been the only Black female supervisor over the VA microbiology lab with that C++++. Because nobody's going to look at your paperwork after college, but it was just a principle thing, because we had been honor students all our lives. We strove to be on the honor roll in school. And I was especially, did y'all hear that? Strove to be on the honor roll. Students all our lives struggle to, in spite of, despite, yes ma'am. Right, and it was, I'm going to say this, I'm probably saying more than I should, but hate was my ammo, it loads my gun. I've been in ministry all my life, and I can go to church and be hated. People can just look at you and size you up and have an issue with you. So that is wood on my fire for you to look at me and have a problem with me. It arms me to do the best I can be because I really don't need your affirmation. I've got it from God, you know. So I'm just saying that as that last class, and then I said I went to Mary Hartville and then TWU. And I've always been the first black on most of the jobs I've had and on the boards I've been. But I don't go looking for friends. I go to do a job.
Yes, ma'am.
I love myself when I get there. You don't even have to like me. And I've been where I was the only woman and the only one of color in Temple, Texas, the first civil service commissioner. When I went, they almost fell over because it was 3 white men always. And I ended up being the first black woman. But I thought they don't define my world. It's defined by God and how I see myself. So I didn't need them to like me, and I could tell they wasn't ready for me. But I'm just going to come and do what I got to do, and that's what I've done from all the other boards I've been on. And I was honored to come here because one thing I did want to take away from that film. That was a real world. I remember when they had black fountains and white fountains in Temple. I remember when we couldn't go into Sears Roebuck and Woolworth. I remember that. I remember we would walk from the east side of Temple I grew up on and come downtown. And you always knew you were black. I said, sometimes our kids don't know what color they are. Not that it should be so that you have a barometer. But sometimes you want to assimilate so bad. I never wanted to assimilate. I just want to be present, to have the same privilege you have, but I don't have to become you.
That's right.
I don't want to become you. I've never wanted to be white. I don't want to be anything but what I am. I like me. I tell the kids I counsel for years as a special ed counselor, love yourself. Love yourself. I love me some me. I love me some me. I look in the mirror and say, I love me some me because I'm all of that.
Well, there you go.
And I'm saying, but if you don't think you all of that, you become this carpet and they walk on you.
Yes,
you can't
ma'am.
walk on me because I don't lay down. So I'm just saying, you have to love yourself because where you're going to go, even in this season that we're in, where people want to back up, they want to turn back. I'm not going back with my black self, okay? I'm not going back.
We're not going
I'm
back.
not going back.
We're not going back.
I'm not going back. And I'll say this, since I've got the mic, I've never had a physical fight in my life. I couldn't fight my siblings because you'd get in trouble. And I've never had to fight anybody else. I've been cussed, I've been threatened with buying a home because I've been a CPS investigator. I've done a lot of stuff. I've been in people's homes. I've been where I was threatened to be killed in someone's apartment for investigating to take care of children. But I never had to defend myself because I said, God, you know where I am. You know I'm here. You know I got on my pumps and my black dress and my hose and I ain't got it. All I have is what do we have, those little beepers? We didn't have cell phones, a beeper. I traveled 9 counties and even pregnant with my last child who's 39 now. No cell phone, just a dime to go to a payphone somewhere in the town and ask for help. But he protected me because I said, you can talk about me and all my ancestors that you don't know.
All her ancestors are with her. Thank you.
You know-
Thank you very much, Dr. Crossley. Thank you. No, there are a lot of gems dropped right there. Because so many of us have a hard time walking into spaces or even going after our dreams because we're so concerned about what people think about us and whether they want us and whether they like us and all of that, and we're limiting ourselves, and we don't need to. Thank you so much, Dr. Crosby. Let's hear from the youngest member of our panel, who nonetheless has published 6 books. Ms. Janae, talk to us. What did you think about what you watched?
Hello. So, wow, that was a lot. I really they wanted to go to jail to fight for their freedom. And it's really disturbing to see how they hit the children as young as me, younger than me, I'm 12, younger than me, get hit with fire hoses and water and get bit by dogs and all this other stuff. And it's crazy to see how grown people can be able to do that to children. It's disturbing.
What did you think about the children and the fact that they wanted to go to jail versus what you're seeing in your schools right now? What are your observations?
People nowadays, me, I ain't going to jail. But if I knew that I was going to jail to fight for my freedoms, yes. They wanted to go to jail to fight for their freedoms. And on top of that, they stick together and they were singing and all this other stuff just for their freedoms.
Do you think that that's something that young people would do now? Or what do you see your classmates going to jail for now?
My classmates now would probably go to jail for stealing snacks.
Thank you so much, Janae.
Let me piggyback on what this young lady said. The young kids, those kids in 1963 go to jail for a reason. I say to young kids today, I was in somewhere a couple of days ago and I heard two boys talking, young guys. Oh, I've been to this place and I got out in so-and-so date and I've been to this unit and this unit. It's like a badge of honor. Today, it is not a badge of honor to say you've been in jail 3 times and you're 16 years old in Judy. You know, those kids had a purpose and they were resilient. You notice when they put the water hose on them, they came back and said, let's wear bathing suits and just have fun with it. Making what? Lemonade out of lemons. And that's what you have to do. Just stay grounded, do what you need to do, speak up, and be positive.
Yeah, just gonna piggyback on what these two said. I mean, like, with like seeing just like the kids and just them fighting, just fight for their freedoms, fight for their future. Because I mean, that was very uncertain. They could have just went out there, got sprayed by the hose, got attacked by dogs for no reason. So I mean, just going out there to actually have a purpose. Because I mean, I don't have a personal point of view of this, but I mean, my grandpa and my grandma on my mom's side, I mean, they actually experienced this. I mean, when my grandma, she grew up in Waco, she grew up in Temple, and she went to Mary Hardin Baylor during those times of segregation and just dealing with all that. And also with my grandpa, I mean, being on my dad's side, he didn't really get to feel the significance of the segregation and integration at that time because he was already an adult. But I mean, just seeing that, just seeing how other people were being treated and just how him personally being a white man and around the 1950s and the 60s, him wanting to make a change as well, going to Vietnam and stuff, just really just like gave me a sense of empowerment every time I talked to him. So I mean, just seeing the kids and just seeing how they fought for their freedoms and just seeing how like people around me have experienced those trials and tribulations and actually, grown from it actually means a lot to me. So yes, this video actually meant a lot to me. And I've actually seen it a couple times. I actually got personally to watch it and just actually sit down and actually have it resonate with me. So yes, this video, it's actually awesome. So I recommend y'all going home, sharing it with your friends and watching it personally. I really do. But yeah.
Thank you, Tristan. And Ms. Terrace.
Yeah, so you first asked if we had seen this documentary before. I have not. And while I am familiar with the movements that this is referring to in 1963 and seeing the images, I think most of us here and across the nation have seen the images of the fire hoses being used on the Black community for speaking out. But I did not know the extent to which children were involved and were at the forefront of this movement. And, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but I all think we can agree that history that we are taught in schools is his story. And just think about the knowledge and the power that comes from knowing that our youth were the ones leading the charge here and the power that they held in this situation. So much so that JFK was pleading and begging for them to remove the kids from the equation. Because when the kids were removed, that makes it easier to look at this big Black man, this big Black woman and say, and I'm saying big in reference to the kids, right? And we can demonize them, dehumanize them. But when you see this 4-year-old little boy, it becomes 10 times harder for this police, well, it should, especially those who call themselves God-fearing Christians, many of whom I'm sure that we saw the white perpetrators doing that, called themselves. So it would have been exponentially more difficult for that level of vitriol and hatred to be leveled towards these kids. And so I think that that was something that really touched me and also highlighted the importance of us continuing to dive deeper into our own history and what came before us, the motivations behind it, the leaders behind it, the silent conversations that we didn't hear, the intentionality of just think about the music we hear and our kids are subjected to, and the words that we say about, you know, and excuse me, but y'all know what it is. It's getting hoes, doing drugs, this and that, bragging about, I've been in jail this many times, I've been shot 9 times. But did you hear the power of that DJ on the radio and his words and what he was able to do and motivate this generation to take action? So those are just a few things, but honestly, I was taking notes. I have a lot.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yes, Dr. Harrison, would you like to?
Along that same time, there was a young man named Jesse. I'm not going to the whole thing. I did a documentary on him. He's about 16 years old, young black man. He's the last one legal known hanging in Texas. He supposedly killed a foreman's wife, and the evidence points to him. At the trial, he was so afraid, and it was the same time as this episode was going on in our history. They asked him, was he guilty? And blacks back then were taught from that lineage up to about 1940 that the name of God was Yeshua, and they said it is Yahweh. That didn't know what else to say. They could not pronounce the language of the white Quakers that teach them. They would say, in the name of Yeshua. And so they thought it pleased the white masters. When the attorney asked him, are you guilty? He said, Yeshua, and dropped his hand. And the judge said, he said, yes, sir. He didn't make it out of the courtroom. They cut off his fingers, his toes, his hands, his scrotum, drug him down Austin Avenue to a tree that still stands partially in Waco, Texas, and lit him up with gasoline, dipped him back and forth. But my connection is this: the wife I'm married to, about 300 children were forced out of school, black children, to come and watch this. There was 15,000 people watching the event. But she was one of those kids that was forced to come and see this, and this will happen to you if you harm or hurt. In Waco, there's a law right now called the malicious eyeballing law. If you look at a white woman too long, they can lock you up. The law is still in force. Nobody's getting arrested for it because everybody's looking at everybody. There was another law, malicious spitting law, because many of them chew tobacco. If you spit on the sidewalk, you get arrested. But my connection is, my wife tells me the story of a little girl, the horror that she has nightmares about, seeing this young man dipped in the oil and dipped back up, and the smell of burning flesh. It's a real reality. It reaches way beyond where we are now. In those days, we had respect one for the other. It seems like respect has gone out the window. We've lost the language of yes, sir, and no, sir. But that's my connection with the kids. It affects her even to this day. And myself and Dr. We are the same time frame. And
So what do you think changed for us? What changed in our community? I mean, hold that thought 1 second. Does anyone in the audience think that our community as it exists right now could do what was done in that documentary?
No.
Yes, ma'am.
I believe we could, but I believe that the time that we're living in right now, we are too comfortable.
So we can't. I mean, we could, okay, we could, but we will not.
We will not.
Okay, got you. So what changed? What has changed for us?
integration is good, but I mean, in my day, and probably your day, the black community was solidified in the fact around the church. Everything surrounded the church. She's a church dog. She's a church kid, preacher kid, prophet. Everything surrounded around the church. The superintendent would come eat at our table. Sometimes my daddy was on the board, chairman of the board or whatever, chairman of trustees at the Magnolia Baptist Church, where I first started preaching at age 6. So I've been preaching 63 years, and I've seen lions, tigers, and bears. Thank you. Oh my. So what has changed for me is that the assimilation of races has made seemingly a lot of white children want to become black, and some black children want to become white. And it's not necessarily right or wrong, but it has been a change. It's just been a change in that era.
I'm gonna ask this question, want to be black or want the, they want the coolness without the burden that comes with it? Yes, sir.
Yeah, somebody said.
Come on up so we can hear you. We've already started the community talk. We're coming back to y'all.
Sorry, I don't necessarily agree that our black children want to be white. I think they want to be accepted. They want to feel belonging. And so belonging can be, fitting in with what's current, what's trendy. And so what we sacrifice when we're doing that is, staying authentic to ourselves. And part of that is them not learning their history. It's hard to stay authentic and uphold values when your history isn't taught to you, when your history isn't validated and affirmed within the school system. And then what I'm really challenged to think about as well is that we don't coalition build well anymore, because the opportunities to do that has really changed. Society has really changed that. We had bowling leagues and we had all types of things as we were growing up that brought us in these community spaces together. Typically the people that are in this room is because we have a shared vision of where we're going. So we don't really have those opportunities as much anymore.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I'll give her a round of applause. We'll come back. So there's actually going to be a whole section of this after lunch where it's all of us talking to each other at our tables and then reporting back, because we need to have these conversations, not just people on stage. So hold on to those thoughts, write them down, because we're going to have plenty of opportunities to talk some more. Tristan. So what do you think has changed for your generation? Trying to pour some knowledge into y'all. What has changed? What have you seen amongst your peers?
Okay, so with one...
And feel free to say what we adults are not doing right.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. So, I feel like now, our generation now, I feel like we have gotten a lot more comfortable. Well, like, comfortable meaning that we've gotten lazy to where we don't get up every day and, go outside. We don't get up and actually do things that will actually benefit ourselves. We like to, get up, get on the game, go hang out with friends, go to the movies or whatever, right? So just not knowing, because not a lot of our, black brothers and sisters, my age and a little older than me, they don't know a lot about their history. So, when they don't know about their history, they don't know how they can do to change themselves, again, go outside and start, improving themselves because they don't know their history. So with my generation, I feel like if we, as, if y'all as parents, kind of sat us down, not as older ages, but start off at younger ages, just slowly teaching us history. So when we get older, we can start getting more interested in it, so we can actually pursue history, so we can start doing the things we used to do, like community events and stuff like that. So again, that's what I think our generation and parents should do to better our future generations going forward.
Thank you very much.
It's difficult to speak to something you have not lived. It's difficult to speak to something if you don't know what change is. If you haven't lived the era of the actual fact of this documentary, you cannot even speak in authority as to what has and what has not changed. I'm speaking from a perspective of the 50s and 60s, and oh my God, it has changed tremendously enough. It has changed. I saw 3 or 4 of the young people shake their heads about people wanting to, and that's what integration means. I'll be like you, be like me. He's shaking his head right now. But we lived that transition. And it's hard, like Jeff Goldstein wanted to be a brain surgeon. He never went to college. So you can't speak to something that you've not lived. If you haven't lived past in the 50s, it's hard to tell what happened in the 50s when somebody was there. And that's why they have an eyewitness in a hearing, because the person can tell you exactly what happened. When somebody else comes along, they can't tell you that.
And the young people right now are speaking to what they're feeling and what they're experiencing at this time. And this is why we need to have these conversations.
Agreed.
And it's apparent that we're not having these conversations in our homes. You know, there are times when I've tried to talk to older folk and it's like, oh, you know, we went through that and baby, and we don't have that conversation. And of course, there are times when, even I as a mother, I'm trying to teach my children Black history. I'm trying to teach them about who we are, and it's not as cool for them, and so they don't want to hear that. But yes, Dr. Crossley.
Very quickly. Temple Independent School District, well, you said a lot, now give me a chance. Temple Independent
Well,
School
but you know you're going to speak
Help
later
yourself.
too, and we do want to hear from
Temple
everybody
Independent
else.
School District, I'm teaching a Black history class for them. I'm doctoring Midway, which is a very predominantly white district. We'll be talking to them. Actual Black history classes. Waco ISD, which I've been affiliated with them since '89. So some school districts are opening up. I taught some here in Killeen, in certain ones of the schools, not everybody in the district wide. But that's what we're working on, trying to indoctrinate kids with positive reassurance that Black history and all history is important for the growth of the future.
Thank you.
I was going to say, you know, when we were going to school, we weren't exposed to Black history. We were actually living it and making it.
Yes.
We lived it and we made it and are making it still. But everyone up in here is making history. What are we writing? What is our life story? What are we doing? I'm not looking so much in the back as in the forward. But I understand that our generation now seems that they're wiser. But as this young man said so well, weaker in ways because they can advance us in ways when they realize who they really are. And I think what we lost with immigration was that when I went to school, our teachers, because they came through the hardest part of segregation, was always telling us we needed to be twice as good. And they were always reinforcing that, and not in a negative way, not to make you mad, but to empower you, because they knew we were going to be one of the first fronts, hopefully going into a more mixed arena. So when we went to college, we'd know, apply yourself. Don't just chill, that's just going to have the college experience, but apply yourself. So my sisters went to the next, and I hate they couldn't come, they went to the next level. I was 68, 69. They just put the Black kids in the white school and just sat them in there, just throw them in classes. And they were just devastated because they said things that we were taught, it was totally different in culture and environment from that environment. And they had to assimilate just immediately. And they didn't want to become anybody. They just wanted to get what they thought was due them based on their abilities education-wise. So I think that's what we lost, is the pride in ourselves. That every human being should be proud of your legacy. I'm 75% African American because the slave master slept with some of us, not with me. But, and when we did our DNA, then the other 25% plus is mixed with European blood, some variation. My sisters and I did our DNA. I had one sister live in Africa for 10 years. We just wanted to find out, we want to know what African nation part we came from. But we take pride in our mixture. When I see kids that are mixed, take pride in your mixture and then work to be the best you can be. Because we don't choose. I didn't choose my parents. I didn't choose my story. I didn't choose nothing. I don't make a choice. I was given that, and I'm working it out and walking it out. And so that's what I think we lost with integration, the self-respect, the pride to know that you can do what anybody else can do. We were told that. And I'm glad we embraced it because we had to do it. All of a sudden, you had to go places where people looked at you and wanted you to start at the bottom. We started at the bottom and go to the top. I'm going to cover whatever area I'm in. I'm going to take authority wherever I am. And so I don't come here feeling dejected and lesser. I dominate. That's my attitude now. I dominate. My space is my space. And so I dominate with my old self. It's my space. So I think we lose a lot of that because we're so busy wanting people to affirm us. You like that? What are we doing? I don't care what y'all doing. I need to do what I was destined to do. And y'all may be going to hell, but I ain't going with you, okay? I want to do what I was destined to do. I don't follow. I'm not a follower. I'm a leader, but too many of us are followers. And if they dive off the hill, it must be what we're doing now. We're diving off the hill, they just dive. No, what's down there? Why are we going to the hill? We don't question nothing. We just want to fit. We want to fit in and get along. I don't really care if you like me. I don't care if you support me. I think that I'm going to make it. That's what we had to have in order to be the first forerunners and to go some places and to fit in. And if you love yourself, I'm going to say this. I made home visits in the Klan area. I was some places I couldn't even go as a social worker. because they told me they'll kill you. They'll kill you if you get there. I was the only place that I had to leave before the sun went down, because I was the only thing that looked like me in town doing my job. And people
And
followed
of course, we know Killeen was a sundown town.
And see, I went over into areas like
And Harker Heights had a concealed wild down law because they did not want black people there after dark. And they certainly, because there were a lot of brothels there with white women, they did not want the black soldiers there after dark cavorting with pristine white women.
right. When you rode the trains through here, my dad told me, because he worked at Camp Hood once, Camp Hood, he'd be over 100 now. He said, when you rode through there, black people pulled down your shades because you couldn't be seen. And so because they just want to attack you and kill you at any point. And but I said I traveled places, and I didn't, like I said, and I would have to remember who I was. But I would say I can't be afraid. I have to do my job. And so I will not deny my faith in God. I said, cover me. Let me do my job. And I'm going to go into homes of people that don't like me because they don't like what I'm in.
Well, we can definitely get into the church and what role it is and isn't playing today. However, let me come to you, Ms. Goodwin Terrace. So you, in your earlier remarks, you were talking a little bit about the music and some of the influences. So what do you feel is or what do you think, and I know you mentor a lot of children, young people too, what do you think is the difference today between how it appears the black community operated versus what we're living?
Yeah, definitely. Well, one, I think that in kind of referring back to the earlier conversation, one is the level of distraction that we face today. And that is, I'm of the generation that I also have kids. My oldest is almost 13 now, and I'm in my early 30s. And we're both distracted, right? So here's my children who are distracted by, and I'm that mean mom who has screen time, locked down and all these apps that monitor what they get on. But he's distracted by the games that he wants to play Roblox with his friends. So then they talk about it at school. And there's this disconnect for him of the goals that he has and the steps needed to achieve those goals. And so he likes soccer. And he says, oh, I want to go play soccer in college and I want to play, I want to be the next, whatever, Ronaldo or something his name is. And I'm like, okay, well, you got to get up and go practice. You have to, if this is the end goal, these are the steps you need to take. But there's this distraction piece that constantly bringing him back. But then my generation, we're also distracted too by life. The heaviness and busyness sometimes of life, of needing to make money, take care of your family, provide meals, try to enrich yourself, self-development, as well as your community. And so it's hard to pull everything together and collectivize without intention to move forward towards that goal of progress. And now to Aya, what you were saying, the difference between kind of now and then, with our youth in particular, listening to you two speak about kind of that safe, although it wasn't an ideal environment where Black children had the same rights and equality of their counterparts, there was this safe environment that you guys had within that community to brainstorm and recognize and acknowledge where there was lack, but also where there was strength and opportunity. And so they were able to collectivize and move towards that. I think with our kids and our generations, that distraction, that need, yes, to fit in, and then what we're prioritizing the wrong things. I think that we are prioritizing being cool, being liked. Oh my gosh, the brain rot. And I do it just to make my kids mad. And it's not anything bad. I know she left off stage. That's a way that they feel a sense of community, right? That is, he's cooked, she's this, he's that. They feel that sense of community. But I think that we're not focusing those efforts in the right direction. But we think it's the right direction, some progress that's still to be made, but until we have our youth understand that they too have greater to accomplish and achieve and goals to reach, then they're not going to collectivize and come around that and move forward. So I think that's where we too, as parents and community members and leaders, need to pour into them and show them, just like like their teachers did. You do have to work twice as hard. Still now and today, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but Miss Anjanette, she paved the way years ago, being the first woman on these boards in Temple and being involved. Well, I'm here to tell you, I'm still the only Black woman on these boards and organizations. Now, I'm not first, but I'm still the only one in these rooms. And so, yes, I do have to work harder. Yes, I do have to go, and I'm like Miss Anjanette. I'm not the most bubbly, nice, and buddy-buddy with everybody. But guess what? I get stuff done. And so I'm here to tell y'all that's what we have to do, but we have to first see the goal and the end point before we can get behind it and do the work.
Thank you. Definitely want to hear from Mr. Johnson. And I'm not sure, were you part of the generation that desegregated the schools, or were you in this generation that was completely segregated schools? Like, what part were you in? Because you know, Black don't crack, so it's really hard to tell just looking at somebody.
I'm in this segregated age group.
Okay.
In Mississippi, I tell my grandson all the time, right? And I think for us and the kids, it's communication. You know, I play little games and stuff, like last night we played a game of Madden, and of course, y'all know who won. But, I think it's communication. I have him, anytime he says he's interested in anything, Mississippi, I tell him about our two-seater when I grew up, his age. Our two-seater was our outhouse. We thought we was big time. Because we had two, not just one. We had a two-seater. You know, and little stuff like that. Things like image.
I think you might have to further explain that. Y'all understand what he said when he talked about that?
Nope.
The outhouse? Okay, break it down, because folks don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, the outhouse was our bathroom. It was outside the house, and we had to dig our own holes and make little, planks to sit on and everything. Go out and use the bathroom. Number one, number two, or whatever.
Oh, wait a second, so you mean when we're talking to young people today, maybe some of you my age too, and you can't just clean that porcelain throne?
Oh,
and that's too much work, and people are having attitudes and all of that. You say you had to dig a hole and put some, okay, I'm sorry, please go right ahead, sir.
Exactly. And our toilet paper was newspaper or whatever brown paper bag we had. I mean, that was our toilet paper. So, and
You said the Sears catalog?
all of those. But and communication is really the key. Anytime he shows interest in anything, I'm taking him up on it. He mentioned Emmett Till. Emmett Till, born and raised about 20 miles from where I was born and raised. So I took him to the site. Wow. We went to the store. He actually saw that place where they say he did something, and all of a sudden he's gone. Okay? So just communication, just talking to the kids, and let them talk to you and listen to them also. Because I know they have a lot going on that, we like, yeah, that's not serious. It's serious to them, so it's serious to me, And the last story I'll tell before I stop is I told them about the first letters of the alphabet that I learned. Okay? It was C and W. My mom used to stress the C and W. Because when I was growing up in Mississippi, it was still segregated. And we couldn't go to anything with a C, we good. Head that way. If you see a W,
wow, did y'all catch that?
go the other way.
I was wondering what he was saying. Did y'all catch that?
That's color and white. And my grandson asked me a question like, Papa, it's the same water coming from the water fountain, so why they gotta separate it? I can't answer that. I mean, is there an answer? They said we was contaminated, I guess, but the water, if you look at the pipe, it's coming up through the same pipe, But just communication with these young kids and listen to them. If they got an issue, listen to them. Don't just say, okay, back in my day, we just did this. I walked 2 miles with no shoes on, because they don't want to hear that. But just listen to them and sometimes play their games to get in their world, and they'll let you know a little bit more than you think. Okay? That's all I have.
That was really helpful. Yes, sir, you want to say something?
So just to piggyback on what all of them said, it's like actually very true. To this day, our kids and generations is like, we're gonna blast you up and that stuff. They're not gonna do it. They're scared. They're literally scared for their life. Back then, we had to like, well, I'm not that old. Way back when my grandpa was raised, he was raised in
a whole other century.
Yeah,
Right.
a whole century. And he was raised in Greenville. Like Emmett was killed in Money, Mississippi, and that was about like 10 minutes away. A little bit more, but about that gas station, I don't know how to put this, like, it's still kind of clean. I mean, the gas didn't work as much, but there was moss everywhere and stuff, didn't be taken care of, and at the end of the road, it was like blocked up so nobody can get through past there. And that was trespassing property. And we headed back, and we went to a statue. There was a lot of people over there. And I just want to say right now, Emmett Till is the actual person who just got beat down. And his grandpa had a whole rifle in his house. Everybody was woke that night, but they just didn't want to do anything. That's all I have.
Can y'all give it up for Isaiah?
I think for the activity, listen to this young man, the word would be responsibility. In our days, this 1, 2, 3 days, for instance, when my father got sick at 6 years old, my mother said, I'll no longer buy you lunch. I can't do it. We lost our house, we lost a lot of things. It was only 25 cents a day. I said, how am I going to survive? I'm writing a book that has these 21 chapters in it. She said, you go out the front door and get a Coca-Cola bottle, any bottle. I said, y'all shake your head. We sell them, 5 cents a bottle. If I collected 21 bottles, that's $1.05 a day in the 50s. That's a lot of money. I paid my lunch. I gave God his money. Gave the house 25 cents and had 20 cents left over to save. At the end of the year, it was $45. I bought all my clothes.
Okay, hold on.
Okay, it's true. I bought my own lunch since I was 7 years old.
Go back.
And I have 6 boys. And I tell them, if you can't take care of your wife, leave her alone. I was taught responsibility. If you marry a girl, you are responsible for her. Somebody will say amen.
Amen.
Okay, I'll quit because y'all getting mad now. That's the preacher in me. Go ahead. What was your question?
Can I tell you something?
Please go right ahead.
I was going to say that I was born in a house because black women didn't go to the hospital. I was born in 1949.
Well, black women, even when they wanted to go to the hospital, weren't
They were
really
not
allowed.
allowed.
Yes.
Scotty White was in Temple, Texas, but black women could not have children there. And so I was born in a house, and my sister was born in a house. By the time she was born in 1950, me in 49, by 52, when my next sister was born, there was no place for black women to have children that had complications. They didn't do midwives, and my mother had complications with me and my sister, Elaine. So she went to Taylor, Texas, going toward Austin, and she had to go to a hospital down there that would allow black women to have their children, and had my sister. Of course, my brother the next year, he was born in 53, he tormented my sister and told her she was adopted because she wasn't born in Temple. Alvin, y'all knew Alvin. But that's where she had to go. That was the only child born outside of Temple because there was no place for my mother because of her complicated pregnancies to have my sister. And then after that, they later on built Cora Anderson, and my last 2 siblings were born in Cora Anderson in 56 and 58. But in 53, when my brother was born, the doctor wanted to go fishing, so my mother was going to a clinic, and he delivered my brother early and paralyzed my mother so he could go fishing. And so my mother, he let her leave the clinic, he delivered her in the office, and sent her home where she couldn't move from pulling my brother out early in 53. And only God healed my mother because she could not move. Nobody would touch her. There was nothing they could do. You know, a lot of black women through their very big being breached and whatever, had paralysis after birth, well, my mother would have been numbered among them. But she lived up to 2 years ago this year, to 98, and God restored her ability to walk. After that, he had 2 more children after that, at 56 and 58. But I'm just saying, the black person had to depend on God and trust him to do what others wouldn't do, and keep living and keep doing. And so our faith would allow us to do that. I'm gonna say one other thing. When we traveled, my dad had to stand outside the service station in Texas, not Mississippi, and hand his money through the door, standing in the rain or through a window, because we were not allowed to go in and pay in the store. And then when we had to go to the restroom, you had a car and you pull over and you open the car doors and you urinate. Hopefully you didn't have to do number 2, but you urinate on the side of the highway no matter where you were going, because you were not allowed to go into public restrooms. You would just pull over and do your business and go on. And so we learned how to not be happy, how to not be sad, but be happy. Because we were alive and we had some privileges that generations before them didn't have. And again, my mother was a nanny for a doctor's family. When they would travel, she had to sit in the car and they'd bring her a sandwich, because she was not allowed to go into the restaurant. And the kids didn't understand. And the woman that hired her kept in touch with her until she died, because they loved my mother for coming along and babysitting their kids. But that was we had real life experiences through those generations. And so I'm concerned when our generation doesn't see the value of what they have. They can go places and do things we couldn't do, and then they settle for so little. When they could be whatever they want to be. I said, beyond the sky, beyond the stars. They can be the answer to what we need now in so many arenas. But I said, I'm never for sale. Don't be for sale.
So you're saying we're not taking advantage of
We're not taking advantage. Our young people in here, they're brilliant, and they don't always know it. You don't wait for other people to tell you you're brilliant. You have to know you're brilliant yourself. And then know, I'm going to change some things. I'm going to change some things, and it's going to be based on my brain, not my bronze, my brain. And change it. Change it so we can see it. And then when you go places, never sell yourself. I talk to the youth groups, Rotaries, every year as a leadership person to empower. And most of the crowd are white kids. I'm not talking to black kids, so they don't get a chance to go to that camp. And they don't sign up for it or whatever. But I tell any kid, any person, I don't care what your racial mixture is or race, you're not for sale. I don't compromise. And then go to college and use the opportunity to learn, not party and get frat. I was in a sorority, but not sell out to sororities and fraternities. You didn't go to have a good time. You go to get a degree and leave and go take the world.
Thank you so much. So as we wrap up, this will be the last question we have for our audience. Where to even start with this? You 3 are talking about your lived experiences, and I would say we lived in a time when you could physically every day feel what oppression looked like. You felt it, you lived it, and you didn't have to read about it. I think we are in a day and time where it's more hidden for those of us who are not paying attention. So yes, women are getting into positions, but black women, I think it's 62 cents on the dollar, loaves to go along with it. We're looking at our history being stripped to the extent that it was even in the curriculum, now being stripped further in the state of Texas. We about the quote-unquote anti-CRT bill. We know about the threats against teachers who even on their own volition want to make sure that they provide a more holistic view of history. We see parents dropping the ball in terms of what we're exposing our young people to. And at the same time, there is a whole system in place with social media where somebody or some group of people somewhere else have more influence on your children who are in your home on a daily basis, because they wake up in the morning and the first thing they do, and some adults do the same, is you get on these devices. Folk were about to lose their mind over TikTok. And it wasn't just the people who are making money off of it, it's people who, oh my God, what will I do now without TikTok? But we're not thinking about who is controlling that and how they're controlling us. And so today, or I guess yesterday, I'm not paying attention to, and I'll say it, that fool, that felons, inauguration. I understand that we have to deal with whoever is the president. I get it, but I'm not giving respect where it's not due. I don't call those white men my founding fathers. They're not my fathers. They didn't even see me as a human being. So I don't know why we're forever giving respect to people who don't respect us.
They
Okay?
owned us as well. They owned us as well.
Thank you. So today, or at some point, Snoop Dogg, who many of us have jammed to his music and support him, even after he brought 2 black women out with dog collars on their necks. You can go Google that if you want to. He is performing for this clown, this felon out there.
Breaks my heart.
I'm not heartbroken about Snoop at all. Because people have always sold us out, going back to Africa and the shores of Africa. People who look like us have always found a reason to care more about their individual goals or whatever they thought they were going to accomplish versus what was in the best interest of everybody. We've always had them. But the question is, and this is my last question to you all, how do we respond in this day and age? I don't sit around waiting for someone else to come and save me. But what I see amongst our young people and amongst my peers is very concerning. If we had said today, whatever the weather was, that we had 3 NFL scouts here,
Okay.
and you just needed to come and sign up and then you'd be able to go to a specialized camp,
Right.
it would have been out the door. And I mean, parents, we spend all kinds of money, effort, time to provide an opportunity for our children to get on a different kind of auction block. And yet, how many people can make it to the NFL? How many teams are there and how many people are in the roster? How many people can make it to the NBA? But we pour so much money and effort into that. And yet, when it comes to education, the thing that can take you as far as you want to go, the thing that will resolve the issues in our community, that's to the wayside. And so we look at Killeen ISD and our literacy rates are in the toilets. We look at Temple, we look at Waco. It's our children. What are we going to do about it? And so the reason why some of the organizations came together to have this is to say, let's talk about it. And Dr. Duckett is going to be leading a community talk once we finish lunch. What are we going to do? And it's not too late to call some of your friends and say, come and be part of this conversation. Because we can't just say, oh, these kids, these kids of today, we raised them. So we have the responsibility for this, and guess what? If we don't get this right, these are the ones who are going to have to take care of us. What is that going to look like? So any last words, and we'll just go down the line. We'll start with you, Ms. Terrace, and just go down the line. Any last words as we talk about what's happening in our community, what to do, and being inspired by what we saw earlier with the Children's March?
Yeah, so I think there is a quote from MLK, sorry I didn't have this, but it is, we are not makers of history, we are made by history. And so it is important to look at the history of those that came before us, their challenges, their struggles, their triumphs. And then as I was sitting last night kind of thinking about today and what I wanted to take away, but also what I wanted to impart, I was wondering, how did they achieve the progress that they did in the past? And one word kept coming up, and it was action. But then there's different types of action, and these are not any definitions in a book or a dictionary anywhere. These are mine that through the lens of what we're talking about. But collective action came to mind. And that is what we saw here in the Children's March. Collectively, these children from even outside other geographical locations coming together. And then also, it's important that we welcome people who share these values and the end goal into this movement. And none of this, you're not black enough, you're not this enough, you're not that enough. If we share in this vision and this goal, we come together to collectively work towards that. In fact, I learned recently that Mendez versus the Orange County. So back in California, this was a Hispanic family, Mexican Americans, who were the first individuals who used the legal system to fight segregation. And then that ended up paving the way for Brown versus Board of Education. And so there are also some shared commonalities too amongst our different groups and some of that intersectionality. And while I think it is so important that the Black community solidify and come together to address our goals and our needs, I also would encourage us to have a bigger lens as well, see that intersectionality. And then we also have collective action, we have productive action. MLK was a proponent of nonviolent protesting, and we see the impacts and the effects that had, and we did see that with our protest for Michael Dean's death. We did that, hundreds of people in downtown Temple. We were nonviolent, although people said we were going to tear down this and that. They closed stores, but at the end of the day, we didn't. And there was an indictment that was brought against that officer, and I do think that had a large role to play in it. So just action. There's one more, but I know we got to keep it moving. So just action.
And we have the community talk. So they're at your table. Let's have that community talk. We will come back to the community, but let's just go down really quickly. We're going to hear from Dr. Harrison lunch, and then it's the community talk. Yes.
Well, what I think, she brought up a great point bringing up action. Action is a great verb when it comes to collective responsibilities for the youth. I mean, like, if we just actually sat our youth down and just gave them a small book. My dad owns a Turks Toys Comics. It's a comic book shop. And I go there and I try to read as much as I can because, I mean, if we just sat them down, it doesn't matter what type of book it is. It can be a superhero book or just give them literature, because with literature, it empowers the mind to actually expand what you want to do with your life. So again, I just think that, going forward, if we want to have a collective action against this, I'm going to say it, this new administration, because it's going to be horrible. I ain't going to lie to y'all. But yes, just like giving them the actual knowledge to actual fight against these systems will be great. So again, that's my 2 cents on action and what we need to do for our community going forward.
While he's passing that mic, Tristan is part of an organization. Can you all stand up real quick? And they actually helped to sponsor this event because this building costs money, the food costs money, and they actually put money into this event. That's what these young men did. Thank you so much. Our future lawyers, our future leaders here in the room, taking action in a way that some of us are not. Thank you all. Have a seat. Yes, sir.
The children are our future, so we just help them out, help them lead the way. And the guys that just stood up, Mr. Christian here, I had the honor to go with them on the DC trip, and they taught me a lot. I mean, a lot. And they involved and they really take seriously what they do. And we toured the African American Museum, and it's something. But just children are our future, and I know one thing I say about passing the torch. A lot of people say that's pass the torch on to these young men. I'm not passing my torch. I'm going to be here as long as I can. I'm going to light y'all's torch, and you all go further than we do. That's what we want from you all. You are our future, so we're not going to be here forever.
My takeaway would be, those are great words for everyone else, collectivity. In other words, pull everybody in. It's not just a Black thing, it's a people thing. It's a people thing because we're fortunate enough that there has been progress where we have the mixing of the races and seeing each other, trying to see each other as equals and not competitive, but empowering each other. And then we have to be active, it was saying. But each and every one of us is influential in this room. We start the movement now. As the young man said, empowering people. I think that the young people are dangerous. You're lethal now. You're lethal now. I'm not looking for the future. I want you to be activated now. So I want you to see that you have worth like this young group did. They already showed we're activated now. That you have the influence, you can get the money, and you don't have to break the law. Never done any time, don't plan to do any. But you can actually get it done by doing the right thing with the right people. So see how influential you are. And I always said I was contagious before COVID came out. I had to quit using the word because I don't think I had COVID. But that you can infect someone. And so each and every one, somebody looks up to you, no matter if you're her age 12 or older. Somebody admires your space and admires you. Use that sphere of influence every day. Don't forget who you are. Instead of just living, actually impact activity. Bless you, each and every one.
I totally agree with everybody. I think that communication, assimilation of knowledge, and cooperative actions rather than something that would disperse. Because you can't undo, once you drop the dye in the water, it's that color. And so you can't undo the dye. We're here now. I think we ought to be collectively moving forward. Somebody's going to always be negative. I try to move away from negativism. And so that's my thought. Just let's work together.
Let's give a round of applause. So at this time, I'm going to hand it back over to Miss Carrie and Dr. Carrie Ann. I just said Washington because I'm thinking scandal, right? But it's actually our very own superstar right here. You haven't been following her. Carrie Ann Zamora Bird.
Hey everyone, thank you so much. Wasn't that incredible? Let's give them a hand again. And so now I have the distinct honor to reintroduce to you, I call him Dr. Harrison. Dr. Harrison. Dr. George Harrison is a moderator of the Willow Grove Baptist District Association for 20 years. He's the pastor of First Baptist Church of Waco for 38 years. He's also the vice president of the Texas Baptist Missionary Convention of Texas and the first vice president of the Texas Gospel Announcers Guild. Dr. Harrison received a full scholarship to North Texas University and the University of Mary Hardin Baylor. He chose to attend UMHB, being one of the first Black students there. He received an Outstanding Achievement Award from the university and the governor of the state of Texas, Briscoe. He was the first Black person to represent the university in speaking engagements as a premier group called the New Edition, not New Edition, but the New Edition, currently called One Voice. He was the music director for Miss UMHB pageant for 4 years, writing several original scores. He received his double major in music and social science in 1977. I can go on and on and on about Dr. Harrison because his lived experiences spanned so many, many years. Dr. Harrison, thank you so much for joining us on today. We honor you, we appreciate you, we respect you, and we love the life and legacy that you have lived. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would please, a community hero and a pillar in our movement, Dr. George Harrison. Please stand as we receive him.
Preaching to the choir.
It is an honor to be here today. I recently had a pretty good accident. A lady broadsided me. I'm a moderator. I was going to help a church on Austin. I have about 15 churches. Some of them are not Baptist. They're interdenominational churches. I'm a pretty good pianist. And so I was going to help this church, and the lady just didn't see the turn, I guess, and she knocked me all the way over, twisted my spine. So I'm going to have back surgery or something. And this is the first time I've gotten out in 2 weeks. I've not missed church in 30 years. I didn't go to church Sunday, so y'all know it was bad for me.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I want to talk about it as an apologetical, and the word is eschatology, meaning for prophecy. A life excerpt featuring Dr. Martin Luther King's speeches. And I want to ask the question, what have the dream to do with the drum major's instinct? To the coordinator and this plethora of dignitaries and attendees, we want to celebrate this day. Dr. King's homiletical, meaning his style of preaching. Everybody has a style of presentation. I teach at the seminary, and the homiletics has to do with how you talk. And the second word would be homiletical inducement. That means how you dissect the scripture. Dr. King delivered a speech entitled The Drum Major Instinct in around February 4th, 1968. Almost 2 months before his assassination on April the 4th, 1968, at the Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, Georgia. I may have to sit in this chair if this thing kicks in really bad. Y'all forgive me. Allow me to kind of set the stage. Well, y'all mind if I sit down in this chair?
Yes, sir. So you can feel comfortable.
On a pain level of 12, it's a 20 at
All right,
times.
sit down, sir.
When I sit down,
Yeah, you'll be okay.
I almost knocked over the pulpit the other day.
Oh, Lord.
And I asked my daughter, they were all sitting there looking at me about to hit the floor. A lot of young people were there. And they said, "You okay, Pops?" I said, "I'm fine." Then they fell out laughing because they said I fell in like a donut and I just rolled across the floor. I see some young folks laughing already, so it's all right. I hit it gracefully.
Thank goodness.
In his speech, he warned about the dangers of the drum major instinct, which he, in his desire to not be over-recognized, praised, or admired. He also discussed how this instinct could be used to serve others. He, in the prophetically spoken word that emanates death, and laid out a challenge to his congregation. He spoke of his death as an advancement toward future. Justice and righteousness, peace, and channeling it into an act of service of love. I believe King's life was, thank you. I'd like to leave you a tip. You've done that 3 times. Very nice young people. I believe King's life was prophetically driven, analogous to several of many of the prophets that were in the Bible. I agree with Dr. Sanjanet. I agree that we've left God out of many things. But I believe his life was germane to and analogous to, such as Samuel, who heard a voice in the middle of the night as he was sleeping in a prophet's house named Eli, after his mother had prayed for a child. He called Eli's name 3 times, and Eli said, "The next time the prophet's voice calls you, it's God, answer him." I believe King's life is analogous to a type of Jeremiah life. Jeremiah, who the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, "Before I formed you in your mother's belly, I knew who you were." This challenges God's selective process. Not that God is prejudiced, but God knows all. If he knows all, if he is, amen, knowing of all things past, present, and future, he knows what lies ahead for you. I believe that King's life was analogous just to, and germane not just to women, men, prophets, but I believe he was relating to some of the women, such as Ruth, who was born out of incestual lineage. We can't think of ourselves more highly than others, the Bible says. Ruth could brag all the day long because of the things that God opened to her. But she couldn't brag too much because she was born from incestual beginnings. In Genesis 19, you'll find out the forefathers Lot was told to leave Sodom and Gomorrah. We know that Lot's wife looked back and turned to a pillar. So we know that he went to a cave named Zoar, and the 2 daughters thought he was the only man left. They laid down with him and produced a son named Moab, who produced a child named Ruth, who said to her mother-in-law after the children had died, Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. And more so, she said, your people shall be my people, and the credit off said, your God shall be my God. We know that she met up with a young boy that was in the house of bread of Bethlehem, whose mother was a prostitute on the wall of Jericho. Y'all remember that story? Where she hid the spies, and when she got out, she married a boy named Solomon, who had a son named Boaz. And when Ruth and Boaz got together, they had a son named Obed. And Obed had a son named Jesse. And Jesse had a little boy named David. Y'all remember the story? In 42 generations, they produced Jesus. Now, what is the relevance here? Generational faith moves beyond the things that we've done wrong in our lives. Generational blessings move beyond what holds you back. Generational blessings moves beyond what your present attitude is. We know that David existed because he's the one that was the ruddy boy that nobody really liked. You have to read his history really close, because the Bible says this about his brothers were tall and handsome. But David wrote about the infrastructural amenities of his life. He said, in sin did my mother conceive me. I was born. That says something. Miss Jesse may have stepped out because he was redheaded and the rest of them were dark. What I'm saying is all of our faults cannot stop God's blessing for your progress.
Come on now.
We know that David was called above the tall boys, the talented ones, the athletic ones. He's the one that wrote in his psalmist. He said, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not. Any of y'all go to church?
Yes, yes.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. And he said this at the end. Surely goodness, you have to speak over yourself sometime. Right. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. King was more than just a typology of these great leaders. King was a present day prophet. I believe that God used to bring about his will. It is his will that we are here now. It was Dr. Martin Luther King. Dr. Martin Luther King, the drum major instinct. The drum major instinct, I believe God used a text through him in Mark 10:35, where he said the two sons of Zebedee, John and James, wanted to sit on the right and left hand side. He said, this is not mine to give. It's not mine. Can you suffer like I will suffer? Can you do? So watch yourself when you want to be Dr. King. Can you suffer like he suffered? I wish I could go back to those days. Can you live through what others have lived through? It's a great ordeal for us to look back and to see the drum major soliloquy. He wants us to be great, to be a servant. Every now and then, King would ask himself, what is it that I won't say about me when I die? He said, if any of you are around in his drum major message, I have met today, I don't want a long funeral. He said, if I get somebody to deliver the eulogy, tell them not to talk too long. Yes, and every now and then, I wonder what I want them to say. You just tell them. It doesn't matter that I have a Nobel Peace Prize. It's not important that I tell them to mention that I have 300 or 400 Amen awards. You tell them at my homegoing, tell them not to mention where I went to school and matriculated as a doctor. Yes, I'd like somebody to mention that on that day Martin Luther King tried to live a life of servitude. Tell them that Martin Luther King tried to feed some folks along the way. You tell them that I tried to make somebody's life easier. Tell them that on that day I tried to visit the sick and the prison locked up. I tell them, I want them to say, I tried to love and serve humanity. Yes, say, I was a drum major for peace. Say, I was a drum major for righteousness. And all of the other shallow things does not matter. I won't have any money to leave behind. I won't have any found luxurious things to leave. And then all I want to say, if I can help somebody as I pass along this way, if I can cheer somebody's life as I pass this way, my living will not be in vain. I believe that God has given the credentials, amen, that Jesus even suffered. He said, you tell them like Jesus, I was buried in another man's tomb. I stayed there all night Friday and all day Saturday. I stayed there all Sunday night, but early on the first day of the week, I got up from the grave. You tell them I may be dead, but my spirit will rise again. I may be hurt, but my spirit shall rise again. When folks knock you down, just tell them, I will rise again. Am I talking to somebody today? Somebody's down and out today. I believe that Dr. King was under the influence of his investors. I believe he was under the influence of his comrades. I met Andrew Young and talked with him, and he said, we pressured King. We do not want him to talk anything about this dream business. And when you tell a preacher not to talk about the dream or whatever they're going to preach about, they're going to preach about it. They may preach about it several times a year since you don't like it. You got some drunks in the church, don't talk about drunks. They're going to talk about drunks for a whole year. This time, King got upset as he spoke there on August the 28th, and I believe that it was a prophetical view of the drum speech leading up to his death. On August 28, 1963 in Washington, D.C., he talked about this, and at this one point in his message, I believe he put down his script. And somebody in the back said, and I think her name was Mahalia Jackson, she said, preach, son. Amen. He said, I say unto you today, my friends, even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. I believe that this is a dream given to me in all generations. I want to live in a place where my children shall not be justified by the color of their skin, but with the content of their character. And this is the hope that I go back with, that we can sing together, march together, hold hands together. And that will be the day when all God's children shall be able to sing with new meaning, with new meaning, with new meaning. I live and I shall not die. It is by Christ that I live and Christ alone. Anybody here know that you can live and not die? God bless you today. May the Lord keep you is our prayer.
Thank you so much, Mr. George Harrison. And that was excerpts from Dr. King's Drum Major. And I think we got a little preaching there, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
All right. Thank you so much for being here today, guys. You got your minds fed, and now we're going to feed your stomachs. Anybody hungry?